Emily Carter had always felt a deep connection to the natural world. From a young age, she was captivated by the mysteries of the animal kingdom, and her fascination had only grown over the years. As a graduate student studying biology, Emily's focus was on wildlife conservation, particularly endangered species. Her dream was to not only study animals but to protect them, ensuring that future generations would have the opportunity to witness their beauty and diversity. This passion had led her to the heart of Africa, where she was part of a research team conducting fieldwork on the delicate balance between wildlife populations and their environments. The African wilderness was unlike anything Emily had ever experienced. The vast savannas, the dense forests, and the open plains stretched as far as the eye could see, each corner teeming with life. For months, Emily had been immersed in studying the interactions between different species, observing how they coexisted, competed, and survived. Her team's work involved tracking animal behaviors, collecting data on habitats, and analyzing the impact of human activity on these fragile ecosystems. It was the kind of research she had dreamed of. And yet, as she spent more time in the field, she found herself constantly struck by the rawness of life and death in the wild. One warm morning, Emily set out with her colleagues to observe a newly discovered herd of elephants. The research team had been tracking their movements for days, eager to learn more about their migratory patterns and interactions with the environment. The team had stationed themselves in a secluded area near a waterhole, hoping for a chance to document the elephant's behavior up close. As Emily sat quietly, her binoculars pressed to her eyes, she marveled at the majesty of the elephants. Their large, wrinkled bodies moved gracefully through the tall grasses, their trunks reaching for leaves and branches, while the younger elephants playfully frolicked around their elders. Emily's heart swelled with admiration for these incredible creatures, whose strength and intelligence were unparalleled. However, the peaceful scene she had been observing would soon be interrupted by an unsettling sight. While watching a particularly large male elephant in the distance, Emily's attention was suddenly diverted to a faint rustling noise near the edge of the field. She squinted, focusing her binoculars on the source of the sound. Her stomach churned as she realized that what she was witnessing was something far more dire than she had anticipated. In the middle of the field, there was a small elephant calf, its body lying motionless on the ground. The calf's ears were flattened, and its legs were awkwardly sprawled in unnatural angles. It was clear that the animal was injured, severely so, and it lay there helplessly, its chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. But what made the scene even more horrifying were the two figures slowly approaching the injured calf. As Emily watched, her heart racing, she recognized the creatures as two African wild dogs known for their ruthless hunting tactics. They were approaching the calf with eerie calm, their eyes gleaming with predatory intent. The dogs circled the calf, their sharp eyes fixed on it, and Emily could see the hunger in their movements. They were calculating, assessing their prey, and in that moment, Emily knew what was about to happen. The young elephant was defenseless, its strength depleted, and its only hope for survival now rested on the actions of those around it. Emily's breath caught in her throat as a surge of panic rushed through her. Her mind raced. She had been trained to observe and record, to study nature in all its raw forms. But in this moment, she couldn't stand idly by. The voice of reason in her head argued that the circle of life was part of nature's design, that this was a natural occurrence in the wild. And yet, another part of her, the part that was driven by empathy for the creatures she loved and studied, couldn't bear to watch the calf fall victim to the dog's merciless attack. Without thinking, Emily dropped her binoculars and grabbed her field radio, her hands shaking as she keyed in the frequency to alert her team. "This is Emily. We've got a situation out here. A baby elephant is injured and under attack by 2 wild dogs. I need help now." Her voice trembled as she spoke. But there was no time to dwell on the fear that gripped her. She couldn't just observe this tragedy unfold. She had to act. Her pulse was racing as she began scanning the area for anything that might help. She grabbed her backpack and quickly rummaged through it, searching for the tools she always carried in the field. Her fingers closed around her flare gun. The team had carried them for emergencies, but she had never imagined needing one like this. Emily took a deep breath and fired a warning shot into the air, hoping the loud noise would startle the wild dogs long enough to give the calf a chance. The sound echoed through the savanna, a sharp and forceful reminder of human presence. She aimed carefully, hoping the blast would make enough of an impact to drive the predators away. But the dogs didn't immediately retreat. They were too focused on their prey, their instincts too ingrained to be easily deterred. Emily felt a deep pang of helplessness as she watched the injured calf struggle to move, its body racked with pain. Her mind was awash with conflicting emotions: fear for the calf, guilt for disrupting the natural order, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility to intervene. Just as Emily began to prepare for another flare shot, a new sound broke through the air, the deep, rumbling trumpeting of an adult elephant. The call was unmistakable, and Emily's heart lifted as she saw the silhouette of a large elephant emerging from the trees, its massive form moving toward the scene with determined steps. It was a mother, the calf's protector, responding to the distress call of her young. The wild dogs, sensing the shift in the environment, hesitated. They were not accustomed to facing such a formidable adversary. The mother elephant approached quickly, her enormous body charging toward the 2 wild dogs. The dogs, realizing the danger of confronting an adult elephant, turned and fled into the underbrush, retreating with swift agility. As the wild dogs disappeared into the distance, Emily let out a shaky breath, her body finally relaxing as the immediate danger passed. The mother elephant knelt down beside the calf, her trunk gently probing the young one's body. The calf stirred weakly, its eyes blinking open as it recognized the comforting presence of its mother. Emily watched in awe, a sense of relief flooding her as the pair shared a moment of connection. The bond between mother and child palpable in the air. Despite the danger that had passed, Emily knew that the calf's survival was far from guaranteed. The injuries it had sustained were severe, and its chances of recovery were uncertain. But for now, it had been saved from the immediate threat, and the presence of the mother gave it the best possible chance of survival. As Emily observed the scene, her heart filled with conflicting emotions. She had witnessed both the fragility and the resilience of the natural world. She had seen the beauty of maternal love, the instinct to protect one's own, but also the harsh realities of survival. In that moment, she realized that conservation was not just about studying animals from a distance, it was about understanding the complexities of their lives. And sometimes, about making difficult choices. The mother elephant and her calf slowly retreated into the forest, their figures disappearing into the shadows. Emily stood still, her heart heavy with the weight of what she had just witnessed. She had intervened in a moment of crisis, but she also knew that there was much more at stake than the life of a single animal. This was part of the larger picture, an intricate web of life, where every action, every decision, had consequences. As Emily returned to her team, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The challenges of wildlife conservation were complex and often overwhelming. But in this moment, she understood more deeply than ever that every life, no matter how small or how vulnerable, mattered. And it was her job to ensure that those lives, and the ecosystems that sustained them, had the chance to thrive. The morning sun was already high in the sky, casting long, sharp shadows across the savanna. Emily Carter stood beside Jack Thompson, her heart still racing from the previous day's events. She had witnessed something that few people ever would, an injured elephant calf, on the brink of death, saved in the nick of time by its mother. But that was only the beginning of the story. The question now was whether the calf would survive the trauma of its injuries, and whether Emily and Jack could do anything to help. It was a question that weighed heavily on both of them. Emily had spent the night wrestling with the decision. She knew that wildlife conservation was never black and white. The balance of nature was delicate, and every intervention, no matter how well-intentioned, had consequences. But she also knew that she couldn't simply stand by and watch the calf die. Not when there was a chance, however slim, that she might be able to help. Jack, always the more level-headed of the two, had voiced his concerns the night before. "You have to understand, Emily," he had said, his brow furrowed in thought. "Intervening with a wild animal, especially one as big as an elephant, is never without risk. The calf is likely in pain, and its mother is protective. We don't know how she'll react if we get too close. And with the presence of predators like wild dogs, we could be putting ourselves in even greater danger." Emily had listened. Of course. She respected Jack's opinion. He was an expert in his own right. His vast knowledge of animal behavior was one of the reasons they made such a strong research team. But her gut told her that the calf deserved a chance. That instinct, which had guided her throughout her career, told her that there was no time to waste. She could not simply abandon it. As Emily and Jack stood on the edge of the savanna, looking out at the clearing where the calf had fallen, Emily could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her. The area was calm now, but the memories of the previous day's chaos lingered. She had already seen how close the wild dogs had come to the calf. And though they had been driven off by the mother elephant, she feared they would return. The calf's injuries were severe. And though the mother had done her best to protect it, she could not fend off all dangers alone. "We need to move quickly," Emily said, her voice steady, though the urgency was clear. "The longer we wait, the more vulnerable the calf becomes. We can't just stand here and do nothing." Jack hesitated, his gaze lingering on the horizon where the wild dogs had vanished the day before. His hand rested on the rifle slung over his shoulder, though he knew that using it was a last resort. He trusted Emily's judgment, but this was a decision that could mean life or death. For the calf, for the two of them, and even for the larger ecosystem they were trying to protect. "All right," Jack finally said, his voice calm but tinged with concern. "But we have to be careful. We'll approach cautiously, keep an eye on the environment. If we see any signs of danger, we pull back immediately. We can't risk getting trapped out there." Emily nodded, her focus sharp. "I know. We'll be cautious. But we need to act fast. The longer we wait, the more likely it is that the wild dogs or other predators will take advantage of the situation." With a shared sense of resolve, they began their approach. The landscape before them was vast and open, the tall grasses rippling gently in the breeze. Emily crouched low, moving with deliberate slowness as she made her way toward the clearing where the calf had been left. Jack moved alongside her, scanning the area with sharp eyes, his senses on high alert. He knew the savanna well, and he had seen how quickly the balance of power could shift between predator and prey. In this moment, they were both the prey, vulnerable and exposed in the open field. Emily had trained for moments like this. Her background in animal behavior, especially in wildlife conservation, had taught her how to read the subtle signs of stress and fear in animals, how to move without startling them, and how to build trust. Even in the most tenuous of situations, she had spent countless hours observing elephants, studying their complex social structures and emotional intelligence. She understood that the key to approaching a wild animal, especially one in distress, was patience, respect, and understanding. But the situation was complicated by the calf's injuries. Emily could see the scars from the previous day's attack, the torn skin and bruises that marred the young elephant's fragile body. The calf was clearly in pain, and though the mother was nearby, she was still wary. Elephants were protective creatures, and any perceived threat to their young could trigger an aggressive response. As they neared the edge of the clearing, Emily signaled for Jack to stop. She crouched low to the ground, peering through the tall grasses. There, in the center of the clearing, the mother elephant stood guard over her calf, her massive body a formidable shield. The calf lay on the ground, its small form curled slightly as it rested, its eyes half closed, a look of exhaustion and pain on its face. The mother's trunk was gently brushing the calf's side, offering comfort in the way only an elephant could. Emily could see the bond between them, the powerful connection that held the family together, even in the face of danger. But the mother's protective stance made it clear that they could not approach without first earning her trust. Any sudden movement, any sign of aggression, could set her off. "We'll have to approach from the side," Emily whispered to Jack. "The mother's attention is fixed on the calf. But if we move too quickly, we could spook her." Jack nodded, his eyes scanning the surroundings once more. "We have to stay close. But we also have to give her space. If we get too close too soon, she might think we're a threat." They moved slowly, carefully, staying low to the ground as they made their way around the perimeter of the clearing. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. But she kept her breathing steady, focusing on the task at hand. They had to move quickly, but they could not afford to be hasty. After several tense moments, they reached a position where they could approach the calf without alarming the mother. Emily's hands were shaking slightly as she pulled out her medical kit. The tools she had brought for just such an emergency. She knew it was a long shot, but she had to try. She had seen elephant calves in distress before, and while it was rare for them to survive without immediate medical attention, she had learned enough to know that some could pull through with the right care. "Stay alert," Emily whispered to Jack, as she crouched down beside the calf. The mother elephant was still watching him closely, but her posture had relaxed slightly. She was not yet comfortable, but she seemed to understand that they were not immediate threats. As Emily began assessing the calf's injuries, Jack kept watch, his eyes darting around the field for any signs of movement. The wild dogs could return at any time, and other predators could be lurking just beyond the trees. Emily worked quickly, applying pressure to the calf's wounds to stem the bleeding, all the while speaking softly, trying to calm the animal. "We're almost there," Emily murmured, her voice steady. "Just hold on, little one." The minutes seemed to stretch into hours. But Emily's determination remained unwavering. She had been trained for this, trained to help animals in distress. But this was different. This wasn't just another research subject. This was a young, vulnerable life, one that she had formed a bond with over the course of the last day. As she finished applying the final bandages, she glanced up at Jack. "I think we've done all we can for now. We'll need to get her back to the camp as soon as possible for more intensive care." Jack gave her a sharp nod, but his expression was still cautious. "We need to move fast. The mother's watching us closely, and I'm sure the wild dogs are still out there." Together, they carefully backed away, giving the mother and calf space, and slowly retreated to a safer distance. The bond between mother and calf was clear, and as they moved away, Emily felt a glimmer of hope that, with the right care, the calf might just have a fighting chance. It was only the beginning of the journey, but Emily knew one thing for certain: she wasn't about to let the calf face this alone. With courage, caution, and a strong belief in the power of compassion, she had taken the first step towards saving a life in the wild. The savanna stretched before Emily and Jack like an unforgiving sea of gold and green. The air was thick with tension, the stillness of the moment amplified by the danger that loomed nearby. As they moved cautiously toward the injured elephant calf, their eyes never strayed far from the figures of the two wild dogs circling the young elephant's form. The predators, lean and fast, had approached with a level of stealth that made Emily's blood run cold. They were closing in, calculating, their eyes locked on the calf with a predator's focus. The mother elephant stood just a few yards away, her massive body a towering presence. But even her protective instincts were not enough to guarantee the safety of her calf from such ruthless hunters. Emily knew that her team had to act quickly. The calf's injuries were severe, and every second counted. Yet, the presence of the wild dogs complicated everything. There was no room for error. Emily's heart raced as she surveyed the situation, trying to think several steps ahead. Jack stood beside her, his eyes scanning the area for any sign of danger. He was usually the calm one, but even he could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on them. The balance between approaching the calf to provide care and fending off the predators was a delicate one. The wild dogs were fast, agile, and relentless. The last thing Emily wanted was to escalate the situation and cause the mother to react aggressively. Or worse, provoke the dogs into attacking. "Keep calm," Jack whispered, his voice low but steady. "We have to stay focused. We'll make our move, but we need to be careful. If those dogs attack, we'll have to act fast, but without causing a panic." Emily nodded, her mind racing. She knew what had to be done. She had to get close to the calf, assess its condition, and stop the bleeding, but she also had to deal with the wild dogs. The challenge was monumental, there was no question about that. Still, Emily had been trained for situations like this. She knew how to handle wildlife in distress. But even her experience didn't prepare her for what was about to unfold. Then, without warning, one of the wild dogs lunged forward, its jaws snapping at the calf's leg. The calf cried out in pain, its body jerking as the sharp teeth sank into its tender flesh. The mother elephant trumpeted loudly, her ears flaring, but she could not move fast enough to intervene. The wild dog, hungry and determined, held on, its jaws clamping tighter. The sight of the calf in pain drove Emily into action. Her heart pounded as she pulled herself to her feet. "Get back," she shouted at Jack, her voice sharp and filled with urgency. "We need to scare him off now." Jack nodded, pulling out his rifle, but he hesitated. He didn't want to fire a shot unless absolutely necessary. The last thing they needed was to add more chaos to an already fragile situation. "We have to get their attention. But we can't risk harming the calf or its mother." Emily didn't waste any more time. She grabbed the flare gun from her pack, aimed it high, and fired a shot into the air. The loud boom echoed across the plains, momentarily stunning the wild dogs. But they were not easily deterred. The dog holding onto the calf's leg refused to release its grip, while the second dog began circling, looking for an opportunity to strike. With desperation rising in her chest, Emily knew that they had to act fast, before the wild dogs could tear into the calf's already vulnerable body. She reached for a nearby branch and waved it in the air, hoping to attract their attention. Her movements were wild, frantic, but she knew she couldn't let fear get the better of her. "Hey, get away from it," Emily shouted, her voice cracking as she ran toward the wild dogs. Her feet kicked up the dust of the savannah as she moved, and Jack followed close behind, his steps sure and steady. But despite their efforts, the dogs remained focused on their prey. Emily's voice grew louder as she sprinted toward the wild dogs. The flare gun still clutched tightly in her hand. "Leave it alone," she screamed, each word laced with a fierce determination. She had to be louder, bolder. She couldn't let them finish what they had started. One of the wild dogs finally turned toward her. Its ears back, teeth bared, eyes wide with hunger. It snarled, its hackles raised, but it hesitated. Emily held her ground, taking a deep breath, trying to channel all of her fear into something that would push the predators away. Her voice broke through the tension, sharp and commanding. "Get back!" The wild dog let out a guttural growl. Still uncertain, but it backed off slightly. The other dog, seeing its companion retreat, hesitated as well. Emily continued to advance, using the branch to keep her distance while keeping her focus entirely on the dogs. Meanwhile, Jack moved to the other side, his rifle aimed upward, ready to fire a warning shot into the air. The wild dogs were not deterred by the noise, if anything. They grew more agitated, but Emily's presence and Jack's strategic positioning seemed to be working. They were pushing the dogs back, inch by inch. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the wild dogs, clearly sensing that the humans were no longer an easy target, turned and retreated, disappearing back into the tall grass with surprising speed. The danger was momentarily averted, but the tension in the air remained thick. Emily and Jack stood there, breathing heavily, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. Emily felt her knees begin to tremble, but she forced herself to stay steady. They had managed to save the calf from further harm. But the battle wasn't over. The wound the calf had suffered was deep, and it was clear that the animal needed more than just a few warning shots and a retreat from predators. "Are you all right?" Jack asked, his voice softer now but still laced with concern. He took a few steps closer, his eyes scanning Emily for any sign of injury or distress. She gave him a small nod, but her eyes were fixed on the calf, watching as it lay weakly beside its mother. "We need to get it back to camp," Emily said, her voice steady but urgent. "We don't have much time. The wound is deep, and there's still a chance the wild dogs could come back. We have to move quickly." Jack agreed, and the two of them began to carefully approach the calf again, mindful of the mother elephant, whose wary eyes tracked every movement. The mother trumpeted again, but she did not charge. Emily could feel the weight of the animal's gaze. There was something primal in it, a deep protective instinct that both frightened and awed her. She knew the mother was not going to let her calf out of her sight. But they had to get the calf out of danger. Together, Emily and Jack gently but quickly began the difficult task of lifting the calf onto a makeshift stretcher. They worked swiftly but cautiously, mindful of the calf's pain and the need to act quickly without alarming the mother. The mother elephant stood sentinel, her eyes never leaving them, her body tense as if ready to protect her calf at any moment. The journey back to camp was long and arduous, with the ever-present risk of predators lurking nearby. But Emily and Jack pushed forward, their determination unwavering. As they reached the camp, the calf's condition stabilized for the moment. and the mother elephant, now calm but watchful, followed at a distance. Emily and Jack knew they had made it out alive. But the battle for the calf's survival was far from over. The next few hours, even days, would be critical. They had to provide the right care to ensure the calf had a fighting chance. But for now, they had saved its life. The struggle, however, had not just been against the wild dogs or the harshness of the environment, it had been against their own fears. They had entered the wilderness as researchers, observers of nature, but in this moment, they had become protectors, fighters, and caregivers. The wild had tested them, but they had not given in. And now, standing with the calf safe for the moment, they knew they had done something extraordinary. They had fought to protect life. And in doing so, they had become part of the fragile and beautiful balance that nature so fiercely guarded. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the camp as Emily and Jack carefully moved the injured elephant calf into a sheltered area near their temporary medical station. The calf, though no longer under immediate threat from the wild dogs, was still gravely injured, and the urgency of their mission was far from over. Emily's mind raced as she assessed the situation. The mother elephant, though now calm, remained nearby, constantly observing them with wary eyes. The bond between mother and calf was undeniable, and Emily knew that any sign of aggression or panic could disrupt their fragile trust. In that moment, Emily was reminded of the research she had done in the past on wildlife conservation and animal rehabilitation in the wild. She had spent years studying how animals could be treated and healed without causing them undue stress. This research had been pivotal in her understanding of animal behavior, particularly when it came to treating injured animals in their natural habitats without overwhelming them with fear. The key, she knew, was to move slowly and methodically, using calm and soothing sounds to reduce anxiety and foster trust. Her mind flashed back to one particular study she had conducted on elephants in the wild, where she had successfully used sound techniques to calm a herd that had been startled by a nearby predator. By using soft vocalizations and carefully timed gestures, Emily had been able to ease their fear and gain their cooperation. She had also learned how to create a safe space for the animals without forcing them into uncomfortable proximity. Today, this knowledge was more crucial than ever. Turning to Jack, Emily spoke with calm authority. "We need to make sure we keep the calf calm during treatment. If we rush, it will only add to the stress. Let's focus on its immediate injuries first and then slowly work our way to the deeper issues." Jack, ever the logical one, nodded in agreement. He had been following Emily's lead throughout this crisis, and he trusted her instincts. His experience with wildlife was invaluable, but Emily's expertise in animal behavior and first aid was what was truly guiding them through this tense situation. "Got it. I'll keep an eye on the perimeter in case anything else comes close," Jack said, his voice steady but with an underlying tension. The savannah was never entirely safe, and he knew that their chances of encountering predators or other threats were still very real. Emily opened the medical kit she had packed and began assessing the calf's wounds. The calf lay on its side, still struggling to breathe in shallow, rapid breaths. But the worst of the panic seemed to have passed. Emily knew that the calf's survival depended on her ability to work efficiently while maintaining a sense of calm around it. The deep bite marks on its leg were still bleeding, though not as profusely as before. But the threat of infection remained high. As she gently applied antiseptic to the wound, Emily continued to speak in a low, soothing voice. "It's okay, little one. We're here to help. You're safe now." She had learned through years of working with animals that sound was one of the most effective ways to comfort them. When animals were in distress, especially those as large and powerful as elephants, they often became disoriented and afraid, which only worsened their condition. By speaking softly and consistently, Emily hoped to create an environment where the calf could feel secure and begin to trust her presence. As she continued her work, she kept her focus on the calf's body language, watching for any signs of discomfort or fear. She was careful not to make any sudden movements, understanding that every twitch or flicker of the calf's ear could signal an escalation in anxiety. Slowly, as she worked her way through the wound, Emily could see the tension in the calf's muscles begin to relax. Its breathing steadied, and the occasional twitch of its ear subsided. She felt a small sense of relief. Progress was being made. "Jack, I need the gauze," Emily called out quietly, her eyes never leaving the calf. Jack moved swiftly, retrieving the necessary supplies and handing them to Emily. As she carefully applied the gauze to the calf's leg, she spoke again, her voice still a calm whisper. "We're almost done, sweet one. Just a little longer." The sound of her voice, the steady rhythm of her movements, and the gentle patting she occasionally gave to the calf's head seemed to have a calming effect. The calf's eyelids fluttered, and its breathing became deeper, more regular. It was responding to Emily's touch, to the steady reassurance she offered. The calf, though still in pain, was beginning to settle, understanding that they were not a threat but a source of comfort. As she finished wrapping the gauze, Emily carefully inspected the calf for any additional injuries. She noticed that the calf's abdomen was tender to the touch, and there were signs of bruising along its sides, likely from the wild dog's initial attack. These wounds, though not as immediately life-threatening, would need attention as well. But Emily had to be cautious not to cause any further distress to the already fragile animal. She paused for a moment, assessing the situation, before looking up at Jack. "We need to keep it warm and safe for now. The calf is in shock, and we can't risk it moving too much. Let's keep the area secure and wait until it regains some strength." Jack nodded, his face tight with concern. "I'll stay close. Let's make sure no one else comes near." Emily sat down beside the calf, continuing to murmur softly to it as she gently stroked its head. She could feel the calf's heart rate begin to slow, its breathing becoming deeper and more consistent. It was responding to her care, and for the first time since they had arrived at the scene, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. The calf wasn't out of the woods yet, but it was no longer spiraling into panic, and that was a victory in itself. After a while, Emily stood and turned to Jack, who had been keeping a vigilant watch around them. The calf is resting now. We'll need to keep monitoring it. But for the moment, it's stable." Jack exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Good. But how long do you think it'll take before it can move?" "It depends," Emily said, her voice thoughtful. "Right now, we're dealing with shock, pain, and the aftermath of the attack. The calf needs time to recover. But if we keep it calm and give it enough rest, we can hopefully help it regain strength." With the immediate danger past, Emily and Jack worked together to fortify the area around the calf, making sure the mother elephant stayed nearby. As the day wore on, Emily continued to monitor the calf's condition, making sure to keep her movements slow and controlled. The calf, though still weak, was beginning to show signs of recovery. It shifted its position slightly, lifting its head to take in its surroundings. Emily allowed herself a small smile, the weight of the moment settling over her. "We did it," she whispered to herself, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. "For now, anyway." Jack stood beside her, his arms crossed as he watched the mother elephant gently nudge the calf with her trunk. "We'll need to keep an eye on the calf's progress. But I think it's clear. It's got a fighting chance." Emily nodded, her heart still racing from the intensity of the past few hours. She had acted on instinct, relying on the skills and techniques she had spent years honing. Her ability to stay calm, to use her knowledge of animal behavior to guide the calf through the crisis, had made all the difference. "We'll keep doing everything we can," Emily said quietly, her gaze fixed on the calf. One step at a time. The sun began to set, casting a golden light across the savanna. And for the first time in hours, Emily felt a deep sense of peace. The battle was far from over. But for now, she had done everything in her power to ensure that the calf had the best chance at survival. And in this moment, that was enough. The sky was painted with the rich hues of the setting sun as Emily and Jack sat in silence, watching the injured elephant calf slowly begin to stir. The tension in the air had dissipated, replaced by a quiet sense of relief that settled in their hearts. The once motionless calf, its body battered by the wild dogs and weakened by shock, was now showing signs of recovery. With careful, tentative movements, the calf shifted its legs, pushing itself up onto its feet. The effort was slow, and there was still a waver of weakness in its limbs. But there was no mistaking it. The calf was standing. Emily felt a wave of emotion rush through her as she watched the calf rise, its body trembling slightly under the strain. The miracle they had been hoping for was beginning to take shape. She had seen many animals fight to survive, but there was something particularly powerful about witnessing this young elephant, so fragile just hours ago, now gaining the strength to stand on its own. The healing process had begun, and the calf was not only surviving but fighting for life. Jack, standing beside Emily, allowed himself a small, relieved smile. His normally calm demeanor softened as he observed the mother elephant, who had been standing nearby throughout the ordeal. She had never taken her eyes off her calf. And now, as her baby moved to stand, the mother moved closer, her trunk gently touching the calf's side in an act of reassurance. Emily could see the immense love and protection the mother felt. And it was clear that the bond between them had only grown stronger after the ordeal. "Look at her," Jack whispered. "She's been so patient, so vigilant. She must have known the calf was in good hands." Emily nodded, her eyes not leaving the pair. "She's a remarkable mother. And that calf, after everything, it's still fighting. It's incredible." For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Emily's heart swelled with gratitude as she watched the calf take its first few uncertain steps. Still weak, but with more determination than Emily had ever thought possible. The mother, standing just a few steps behind, encouraged the calf with soft, murmured trumpets, guiding it forward. The calf, though shaky, began to walk in small, careful steps, its legs still unsteady but its spirit clearly unwavering. After a few moments, the calf seemed to gain a bit more confidence. The trembling lessened, and its movements grew more fluid. It was clear that the calf had not only survived but was on the road to recovery. The wound on its leg, though still visible, had been treated and bandaged, and the calf's survival instinct was clearly in action, driving it to move and live. "We did it," Emily whispered, more to herself than to Jack. The words felt almost unreal, considering the gravity of what they had faced just hours before. They had fought against nature's harshness. They had stepped into a delicate, dangerous situation, and they had managed to save a life. The feeling of accomplishment was overwhelming. And yet there was also a deep sense of humility. They had not done this alone. The calf's survival was a testament to its own resilience, its bond with its mother, and the strength of nature itself. Jack placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, his voice steady but filled with warmth. "You were amazing today. We both were." Emily smiled at him, grateful for his support and the partnership they had formed. "We make a good team," she said softly, but as her gaze returned to the mother and calf, she couldn't help but feel something deeper stirring within her. This wasn't just about saving one animal. It was about understanding the bigger picture, the interconnectedness of all life, and the importance of protecting these fragile ecosystems that were so often threatened by human activity. As the calf continued to stumble toward its mother, Emily stood up, feeling the weight of the day's events settle in. She was exhausted, emotionally drained from the intense effort. But she felt a profound sense of peace. The calf was safe for now. And that was what mattered. The journey of survival wasn't over. But it was a victory, a small but significant one. The sun was dipping lower in the sky, casting a warm golden light over the savanna. The landscape was peaceful now, the tension of the day fading into the quiet of the evening. The calf had made it, and the mother was guiding it away from the area where danger had once loomed. Emily and Jack watched them leave, the two elephants moving together, side by side, in the direction of the distant trees. "It's incredible," Emily said softly, her voice filled with a sense of awe. "Every time I think I understand the wild, it teaches me something new. The resilience of these animals, the strength of their bonds, it's all so much bigger than anything we can control." Jack nodded, his gaze still fixed on the elephants. "It's humbling. isn't it? We can study them, we can help where we can. But at the end of the day, they have the strength to survive in a way we can only admire. Emily felt a deep sense of connection to the animals, to the land, and to the purpose that had brought her here. Her work was not just about observation, it was about action. It was about being a part of something greater than herself, working toward the preservation of life and the protection of those who could not protect themselves. Turning to Jack, Emily spoke with renewed determination. "This is why I do this. This is why I'll keep going. I'm not just studying animals, Jack, I'm protecting them. I'll do whatever it takes to help them survive. To make sure that moments like this one can happen again and again. We need to give them a chance. We have to fight for their future." Jack looked at her, his expression softening. "And you're doing that, Emily, every day. You're making a difference." Emily smiled, the weight of the responsibility never far from her mind. But the knowledge that she was not alone in this work brought her comfort. She turned back to watch the elephants, her heart swelling with hope. The calf was walking with more confidence now, its steps growing steadier as it followed its mother. Together, they were leaving the danger behind, moving toward safety, toward life. As the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the plains, Emily and Jack stood silently, watching the elephants disappear into the distance. The journey was far from over, and the challenges of wildlife conservation remained daunting. But in this moment, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had made a difference today, and she would continue to fight for the survival of species like this calf, like all the others in the wild whose futures hung in the balance. "Let's keep moving," Emily said, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "There's more work to be done." Jack nodded, his gaze meeting hers with a shared understanding. Together, they turned and began their journey back, ready to face the next challenge. Their mission was clear, their commitment unwavering. The wild had given them a glimpse of hope, and now it was time to carry that hope forward, to continue the fight for the animals that needed their help. The sound of elephants trumpeting echoed softly in the distance as they walked away. A reminder of the bond between mother and child, and of the promise Emily had made, to always protect, to always fight, and to always give the wild a voice.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.